They say blood is thicker than water. In the Middleton household, blood was just another commodity to trade. Vera Middleton woke to the sound of silk rustling. Her bedroom door stood ajar, moonlight cutting across the Persian rug in a cold silver line. She blinked away sleep and pushed herself up slowly, her cotton nightgown twisted around her waist. Bella stood at her wardrobe, pulling dresses from hangers and folding them into a worn leather travel bag, the kind meant for journeys with no return date. She didn't look at Vera. None of them ever did unless they needed something. "What are you doing?" Her voice came out hoarse, small. "Packing." Bella tossed a gray woolen cloak into the bag without ceremony. Vera's throat tightened. "Packing for what?" Anita appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, her face carved from marble. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Vera looked between them, her heartbeat starting to race. "Make what harder?" Bella closed the bag with a sharp pull of leather straps. "We're solving a problem." The words hit like a slap. Vera knew about the problems. Everyone in Ironmore knew the Middleton family had fallen from grace. Their father's failed business ventures, the mounting debts, the whispers that they'd lost their standing among the noble families. She'd heard the midnight arguments through the walls, the tense phone calls that made her sister's voices sharp and desperate. "How?" she whispered. Anita's jaw clenched. "You're going to the Shadowfang territory. They've agreed to take you in. Our family honors will be restored. Take her in." The words were polished, diplomatic. But Vera had heard enough whispers in Ironmore to know what happened to unclaimed wolves in Garrick Shadowfang's compound. They didn't become guests. They became property. They vanished into stone fortresses built on volcanic rock and came out hollow-eyed if they came out at all. "No." She stood, her legs trembling beneath her. "You can't just send me there." Bella finally looked at her. And there was nothing in her eyes. No guilt, no hesitation, no sisterly love. "It's already arranged. I'm your sister." "You're a solution," Bella said flatly. "And you're the only one they'd accept in trade." The air left Vera's lungs. She turned to Anita, desperate. "Please. You know what they do to wolves like me there. Please don't make me go. You'll be fine." Anita's voice was clipped, cold. "They'll provide for you. It's better than being a burden here." "A burden?" Her voice cracked. "You're selling me. We're giving you purpose." Bella hefted the bag over her shoulder. "Real pack structure. Real hierarchy. You should be grateful." Grateful. The word tasted like ash in her mouth. Vera looked past them to the hallway, to the dim light spilling from the study where Abigail sat at the desk, no doubt finalizing the paperwork. Where their father would be nursing his evening brandy, staring at old family portraits like they could bring back better days. He knew. He had to know. "Father wouldn't allow this," she said, even though she knew it was a lie. Anita laughed, sharp and cruel. "Father signed the contract himself. It was the only way to save the Middleton name." Vera's knees nearly buckled. She grabbed the bedpost to steady herself, her fingers digging into carved wood that had been in their family for generations. "When are they coming?" "Dawn." Bella walked past her without another glance. "Get dressed. Wear something plain." They left her there, standing in her childhood bedroom, the walls suddenly too close. She looked around at the faded wallpaper, the water-stained ceiling, the small portrait of her mother tucked into the mirror frame, the only thing she'd insisted on keeping after her mother died 5 years ago. Vera pulled the portrait free and held it with shaking hands. Her mother's smile was soft, distant, like she'd already known what her daughters would become. Like she'd tried to warn Vera before the fever took her. "I'm sorry," Vera whispered to the painted face. "I'm so sorry." She didn't know what she was apologizing for. For not being stronger, maybe. For not being worth keeping. For having a wolf that had never emerged, that had stayed silent inside her for 22 years while her sister's wolves had manifested strong and fierce. She dressed in silence, pulling on a simple gray dress and worn boots, her movements mechanical. The manor around her creaked and settled, familiar in the worst way. This was the place where she'd scrubbed floors on her hands and knees after her sister's parties. Where she'd prepared meals no one thanked her for. Where she'd swallowed bitter vitamin tonics, that Anita mixed, tonics that were supposed to help her weak constitution but only ever made her feel smaller, quieter, less. She was 22 years old and she'd never shifted. Never felt her wolf. Never experienced the transformation that defined their entire society. The other wolves in Ironmore whispered that she was broken. That whatever ancient bloodline the Middletons claimed had thinned to nothing in her. Maybe they were right. Dawn came too fast. Vera stood in the entrance hall with her bag at her feet, watching her sisters move through the manor like phantoms. They didn't look at her. Anita checked her reflection in the gilt mirror. Bella adjusted her pearl necklace. Abigail reviewed documents at the hall table, her pen scratching across parchment. Their father, Theron Middleton, stood by the tall window overlooking the grounds, hands clasped behind his back, shoulders rigid. He stared out at nothing. Headlights cut through the morning mist, winding up the long drive to the manor. Vera's breath caught. "They're here," Abigail said, not looking up from her papers. The knock on the door was heavy, authoritative. A sound that demanded obedience. Anita opened it and a man stepped inside, tall, powerfully built, with cold amber eyes and a scar cutting through his jaw. He wore black tactical gear and a leather pauldron marked with the Shadowfang sigil. The scent rolling off him was all smoke and iron. "Cade Vex," he introduced himself, his voice like gravel. "Shadowfang Pack Enforcer. Alpha Garrick sent me. She's ready." Anita gestured at Vera like she was a piece of furniture being delivered. Cade's gaze swept over her, clinical and assessing. He stepped closer, circling her once. Vera stood frozen, shame burning up her throat. This was an inspection. She was livestock. Unmated. Cade asked. "Unattached," Bella confirmed. "No pack bonds. No connections outside this family." Cade nodded slowly. "She'll do." He pulled a sealed envelope from his coat and handed it to Abigail. Vera watched her sister's manicured fingers break the wax seal and scan the contents. A letter of debt forgiveness. A restoration of the Middleton family's position in noble society. All purchased with Vera's freedom. Abigail's face relaxed. Bella's shoulders dropped. They'd gotten what they wanted. "Let's go," Cade said. Vera's feet wouldn't move. She looked back at her father one last time, hoping, desperately hoping, for something. A word. A protest. Anything that said she mattered. Theron Middleton stared at his reflection in the window glass and said nothing. Cade's hand closed around her upper arm, not rough but firm, unyielding, and he guided her toward the door. Vera grabbed her bag and let herself be led outside into the cold morning air. Her breath misted in front of her face. Two black SUVs idled in the circular drive, engines rumbling like sleeping beasts. Cade opened the back door of the second vehicle and gestured for her to get in. Vera climbed inside. The leather seat was cold beneath her. Through the tinted window, she saw her sisters standing in the doorway of the manor, their faces unreadable in the half-light. The door slammed shut. The locks engaged with a heavy click. As the vehicle pulled away, Vera turned to look back at the only home she'd ever known. The Middleton Manor grew smaller in the rear window, its stone walls and ivy-covered turrets fading into the morning fog. Her hand pressed against the glass, fingers splayed. And deep inside her chest, in a place she'd always believed was empty, something stirred. Something that felt like heat and rage and the first spark of a fire that had been smothered for far too long. Her wolf. Finally waking up. Before we continue Vera's transformation from broken girl to powerful queen, claim your place in our pack. Hit that like button if you're ready to see Vera unleash her silver wolf. Subscribe and howl with us for more tales of betrayal, revenge, and supernatural romance. Drop a comment below with your territory. Where in the world are you watching from? Every wolf needs a pack. Let's build ours together. The SUV smelled like leather and something metallic that made Vera's stomach turn. Cade Vex sat in front, silent as stone. Neither he nor the driver acknowledged her beyond occasional glances in the rearview mirror. Vera pressed her forehead against the cold window and watched Ironmore disappear. 22 years reduced to fading lights in the darkness. The vitamin tonics. She could still taste them, bitter, chalky, clinging to the back of her throat. Anita had started giving them to her at 12, right after their mother got sick. "For your constitution," she'd said, smile sharp as glass. But Vera had only grown weaker. While her sister's wolves emerged fierce at 16, Vera's 18th birthday came and went with nothing. No transformation. Just silence where her wolf should have been. She remembered whispered conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. The way Bella and Abigail would exchange glances across the dinner table, speaking in smirks and raised eyebrows. The way their wolves would circle her during gatherings, hackles raised, eyes gleaming with something less like protection and more like hunger. Guard the silver flame. Her mother's final words, gasped in that hospital room. Vera had been holding her hand, feeling how paper-thin it had become. What does that mean? She'd whispered, but her mother's grip went slack, machines screaming, and Anita pulled her away with iron hands. Later she'd asked her sisters. Mother was delirious, Bella said without meeting her eyes. Fever dreams. But Vera had seen fear flash across Anita's face when their mother spoke. Fear and rage. The SUV hit a pothole. They were on old roads now, heading toward the forbidden marshes where Shadowfang territory began. Smoke rose in the distance against the pre-dawn sky. Kate's phone buzzed. Yes, Alpha. Pause. Confirmed. The Middleton girl. Another pause. Understood. He turned to look at Vera, amber eyes catching dashboard light like a predator's. Alpha Garrick is very interested in meeting you. He's been waiting for someone exactly like you for a very long time. Vera's hand went to her chest, pressing where that strange stirring had been. That heat. That spark of awakening. What does he want with me? Cade smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing she'd seen all night. You'll find out soon enough. The fortress appeared on the horizon, black stone rising from volcanic rock like something born from nightmares. Somewhere inside, Garrick Shadowfang was waiting. For her. For something he believed she carried. Something her sisters had been trying to suppress her entire life. The gates opened with a grinding shriek of metal on stone. The Shadowfang compound was a prison carved into a dead volcano. Black stone walls rose 30 feet high, topped with iron spikes. Guard towers watched the courtyard with cold efficiency. Cade pulled Vera from the SUV. The air smelled like sulfur and ash. Inside, bare concrete walls flickered under sickly fluorescent lights. A woman in gray fatigues sat behind a metal desk. Name. Vera Middleton. Strip. Showers through there. There was no privacy. Vera undressed with shaking hands alongside 3 other women. The shower was freezing. Someone threw rough gray clothing at her, shapeless and hanging. They were herded into a larger room lined with cells. The stench hit first. Unwashed bodies, fear, desperation. Faces appeared behind bars, hollow expressions. A girl near the back wrapped her arms around herself. Brown hair in matted tangles, eyes like windows into nothing. First time, she asked quietly. Vera nodded. Why? Been here 3 years. They use us for labor. Mines, kitchens. She looked away. Sometimes other things. Bromegas. Unclaimed. No protection. Property. The door opened. The room went silent. Garrick Shadowfang entered like a storm-given form. Massive, 6.5 feet of muscle and predatory grace. Dark hair in a warrior's knot, eyes like obsidian. Scars crisscrossed his forearms. He walked down the line, barely glancing at arrivals. Bored. Dismissive. Then he reached Vera. He stopped. Those black eyes fixed on her. Recognition. Hunger. Calculation. You. His voice was low, dangerous. He stepped closer, suffocating. His hand shot out and gripped her chin, forcing her face up. She felt leashed violence in that touch. The stirring in Vera's chest flared, heat and anger and something that wanted to bite. Garrick's eyes widened. His mouth curved into a smile that froze her blood. The king is looking for something, he murmured. His grip tightened. And I think I just found leverage. He released her and turned to his enforcer. Not with the others. Tower room. North wing. Post guards. Alpha. Do it. Garrick looked back at Vera, ambition blazing in his eyes. Our little Middleton girl is going to be very valuable. Guards pulled Vera from the line. Maya watched with dead eyes as Vera was dragged toward a different corridor, one that led up. The tower room was small but clean. Narrow bed, barred window, door that locked from outside. A guard shoved her inside. Don't try anything stupid. Alpha wants you intact. The lock clicked. Vera pressed her hands against cold stone. Below, the compound came to life. Shouts, machinery, distant screaming. She was trapped. Alone. Held for reasons she didn't understand. And somewhere out there an Alpha King was searching for something. Something Garrick Shadowfang thought he'd found in her. The news arrived at the Shadowfang compound like thunder before a storm. Alpha King Dylan Bravestone was conducting surprise inspections of the border packs. Searching, the whispers said. Hunting for something, or someone. Vera heard the panic in Garrick's voice through the stone walls of her tower room. Orders barked down corridors. Footsteps scrambling. The compound moved like a disturbed anthill, chaotic and purposeful at once. They were hiding things. Hiding people. Hiding her. She pressed her face against the barred window, watching black vehicles roll through the gates in formation. Sleek, powerful, predatory. The king's convoy. Each one bore the royal crest in silver, catching the weak afternoon light. Vera's heart hammered against her ribs. She didn't know why Garrick wanted her concealed. She was nothing. Worthless. A wolfless girl sold like livestock. But something in her chest disagreed. That stirring she'd felt in the car, that heat and rage coiled beneath her sternum, pulsed stronger now. Insistent. Demanding. She heard boots on the tower stairs. Heavy, measured steps that didn't belong to any of Garrick's men. The sound resonated through her bones, through the stone itself, as if the fortress recognized its true master. The door at the bottom of the stairs splintered open. Vera stumbled back from the window, pulse racing as the footsteps climbed closer. 1 level. 2. 3. Then he appeared at her barred door. Alpha King Dylan Bravestone. He was massive, broad-shouldered and towering, his presence filling the narrow corridor beyond her cell. Dark hair, sharp jawline, eyes like molten amber that burned with an intensity that stole the breath from her lungs. He wore tactical black beneath a long coat marked with the royal insignia, authority radiating from him in waves. Their eyes met. Time stopped. Vera's wrist erupted in searing heat. She gasped, clutching it to her chest as golden light flickered across her skin, a mark forming, burning itself into existence. A flame. Small and intricate and impossibly bright. Dylan's hand shot to his own wrist, his expression shifting from controlled authority to raw shock. The same mark blazed there, mirroring hers. Soul Ember. The bond thought to be legend. His wolf surged to the surface. She saw it in the way his eyes flared gold, in the way his entire body went rigid with barely contained power. When he spoke, his voice was deeper, rougher, layered with something ancient and absolute. Wine. The word reverberated through her, a claiming that reached into the hollow space inside her chest and ignited something that had been dormant for 22 years. Pie Queen. Her wolf roared awake, violent and sudden, clawing at the cage of her ribs. Pie Salvation. Dylan gripped the bars and Vera watched them bend beneath his hands like softened wax. Behind him, Garrick Shadowfang appeared, flanked by his enforcers, faces twisted with fury and fear. You have no right, Garrick started. Dylan turned and the temperature in the corridor plummeted. Royal right. His voice cut like a blade. Any person bearing the oracle mark belongs to the crown. He extended his arm, the golden flame mark blazing on his wrist, impossible to deny. Then he looked at Vera, his gaze holding hers with terrifying intensity. Show them. Her hand trembled as she raised her wrist. The mark pulsed with light, warm and alive, singing with power she'd never known she possessed. Garrick's face went ashen. Dylan tore the cell door from its hinges and stepped inside. When his hand closed around hers, the contact sent a shockwave through her entire body. Electricity and fire and recognition so profound it brought tears to her eyes. You're coming with me, he said, his voice gentler now but no less commanding. And for the first time in her life, Vera didn't feel powerless. She felt chosen. Iron Spire Keep rose from the mountains like a blade thrust into the sky. Black iron and white stones spiraled upward in impossible towers that vanished into low-hanging clouds. Ancient battlements crowned the fortress walls, and everywhere Vera looked, silver banners bearing the royal crest snapped in the wind. It was beautiful and terrifying, a monument to power that made her feel infinitely small. Dylan's hand remained at the small of her back as they walked through corridors so vast her footsteps echoed. Guards bowed as they passed. Servants averted their eyes. The castle hummed with deference and fear. And she was terrified. Not of the castle. Of him. Of the way her skin burned where his hand touched her. Of the way her pulse quickened when he spoke. Of the mate bond that pulled at something deep inside her chest, demanding she move closer, surrender, submit to this overwhelming presence beside her. He brought her to a chamber with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the kingdom below. Firelight danced across dark wood and rich fabrics. It was more luxurious than anything she'd ever seen. "You're safe here," Dylan said, his voice low and careful, like he was gentling a wild animal. "I know this is overwhelming." "Overwhelming," she repeated, the word tasting absurd. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of how plain her gray dress looked in this place of wealth and power. "You broke into a compound, claimed me like property, and brought me to a castle in the clouds. I don't even know what that mark means." Dylan stepped closer and she forced herself not to retreat. "It means you're my mate. My fated pair." The legends spoke of a silver wolf who would restore the ancient protections, who would save this kingdom from the darkness rising in the north. "I don't have a wolf." The confession burned like acid in her throat. "I'm broken. Everyone knows it." "You're not broken." His amber eyes held hers with absolute certainty. "You're something else entirely." Before she could respond, the door opened and a woman entered, tall and elegant with silver-streaked black hair and eyes the color of storm clouds. She carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who answered to no one but the king. "Elara Moon Whisper," Dylan introduced. "The royal healer. The best in the kingdom." Elara's gaze swept over Vera with clinical precision. "May I examine you?" Vera nodded, too overwhelmed to refuse. The healer guided her to a chair by the fire and knelt beside her, taking her wrist gently. Elara's fingers pressed against her pulse point, and her eyes drifted closed in concentration. Magic, subtle and cool, threaded through Vera's veins like searching fingers. Minutes passed in tense silence. When Elara finally opened her eyes, her expression was grim. "Your blood is saturated with nightshade essence and wolfsbane root." Her voice was steady but cold with anger. "Potent suppressants. The kind used to keep wolves from shifting." Vera's breath caught. "What?" Elara met her eyes. "Someone has been dosing you since childhood. Systematically. Deliberately." The room tilted. Vera gripped the arms of the chair, her mind racing back through years of bitter tonics and concerned sisters insisting she needed her medicine. The vitamin supplements. The special teas. The lies. "Pie sisters," she whispered. Dylan's jaw clenched, fury rolling off him in waves. "How long?" Elara stood, her expression dark. "Based on the concentration in her system? Since she was a child. Perhaps 5 or 6 years old. Long enough to cage a wolf completely." She turned to Vera, and for the first time, there was something like pity in her eyes. "Your wolf isn't dead, child. She's been caged. Starved. Buried alive inside you for 17 years. Vera couldn't breathe. 17 years of believing she was worthless. Broken. Less than everyone around her. And it had all been a lie. A cruelty inflicted by the people who were supposed to love her. Dylan knelt before her chair, his large hands covering hers. "We'll fix this. We'll flush the poison from your system and set her free." "How?" Her voice cracked. Elara's expression turned grave. "Kidux. It won't be easy. The poison is woven into every cell of your body. When we purge it, your wolf will fight to surface, and it will be agony." Vera looked between them, fear and rage warring in her chest. Agony. After 17 years of quiet suffering, she would have to endure more pain to become whole. But beneath the fear, something stirred. That heat. That presence she'd felt since leaving the Middleton Manor. Her wolf. Caged but not dead. Waiting. "When do we start?" she asked. Dylan's eyes blazed with approval and something fiercer. Pride. "Now." The first wave hit like liquid fire in her veins. Vera's body arched off the bed, muscles seizing, every nerve ending screaming as Elara's antidote began its brutal work. The poison that had lived in her bones for 17 years didn't want to leave. It clung to her cells, fought back, turned her own body into a battlefield. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the agony ripping through her in relentless waves. "I'm here." Dylan's voice cut through the haze, his hands gripping hers with steady strength. "I'm not leaving you." Time became meaningless. Day bled into night, night into day. The room spun and tilted. Fever burned through her, then ice that felt like death. Her stomach emptied until there was nothing left but bile and blood. And beneath it all, something was waking up. Her wolf clawed at the inside of her skin, desperate to break free after years of suffocation. Vera felt her trying to surface, felt the shift beginning and failing like bones trying to break and reform, but the poison still holding them in place. The pain was indescribable. On the second night, Dylan pressed his forehead to hers and began to whisper in a language she didn't recognize, ancient words that thrummed with power. Alpha authority bled into her through the mate bond, lending her strength, calling to her wolf. "Come forth," he commanded. "You are not broken. You are not caged. Come forth and claim your freedom." But her wolf couldn't. Not yet. The poison still had teeth. On the third day, delirium took hold. Vera saw her childhood bedroom. Anita standing over her with a teacup, smiling that patient, sisterly smile. "Drink your medicine, Vera. It'll make you strong." The liquid was bitter, always bitter, and Vera drank it because she trusted her. Because she was 5 years old and didn't know that love could wear the face of poison. The memory shifted. Her mother's sick room, fever-bright eyes finding Vera through the haze of dying. "Guard the silver flame," she'd whispered, fingers clutching Vera's small hand. "Don't let them." But Anita had swept in, all concern and efficiency, ushering Vera out. "Mother's confused. The fever, you understand. Don't listen to her ravings." Another memory. 10 years old, asking why she still couldn't shift when other children her age were already running with their wolves. Bella's hand on her shoulder, voice dripping false sympathy. "Some wolves are late bloomers. Keep taking your supplements. They'll help." Lies. All of it. Years and years of carefully constructed lies. They'd stolen her childhood. Her strength. Her very identity. Not out of ignorance or mistake, but with deliberate, methodical cruelty. The betrayal cut deeper than the physical agony. It burrowed into her soul and made her want to scream until her throat bled. On the fourth night she stopped screaming. The convulsions eased. Her body began to win the war against the poison, cell by cell, breath by breath. Dylan held her through all of it. His presence was the only constant in the chaos. His voice, his touch, the mate bond that anchored her when everything else felt like it was dissolving. On the fifth day, something inside her chest cracked open. Not breaking. Blooming. Her wolf surged forward with a howl of rage and triumph that only Vera could hear. Not free yet, but close. So close. When dawn broke on the sixth day, Vera opened her eyes. The room came into focus slowly. Morning light streamed through the windows. Dylan sat beside the bed, still holding her hand, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. He looked up and his breath caught. "Vera." She raised a trembling hand to her face and found her reflection in the mirror across the room. Silver streaks now ran through her blonde hair like lightning strikes. Her gray eyes held flecks of gold that caught the light and glowed. And inside her chest she felt it, a presence that had always been there but never acknowledged. Powerful. Furious. Her wolf. Awake at last. The broadcast appeared on every screen across the kingdom during prime viewing hours. Anita Middleton sat in the drawing room of their family estate, dressed in mourning black, tears streaming down her porcelain cheeks. The lighting was perfect, soft and sympathetic, casting her in the glow of a devoted sister consumed by worry. "Please," she whispered to the camera, voice breaking at precisely the right moment. "Please bring our sister home. Vera's not well. She requires constant medical supervision. Specialized care. The king," her voice caught. "The king has taken her against her will and we fear for her safety." Dylan watched the broadcast from his study, jaw clenched so tight it ached. Beside him, his advisors stood in tense silence. The camera cut to Bella, who held up official-looking documents with practiced grief etched into her features. "Our family physician diagnosed Vera years ago with severe delusions and episodes of violence. She believes in prophecies that don't exist. She's a danger to herself." Her voice dropped to a pained whisper. "We love her. We only want her safe." Falsified documents. Every word a calculated lie. Then Abigail appeared, youngest of the 3 sisters, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. "The Alpha King is obsessed with an ancient prophecy. He's convinced Vera is some kind of chosen one, but she's just a sick girl who needs help. He's using her delusions to justify kidnapping. This is tyranny." The broadcast ended with a plea for the royal council to intervene. Within hours the kingdom erupted. Protesters gathered outside Ironspire Keep's gates, holding signs demanding Vera's return. News outlets ran endless segments debating the king's authority versus family rights. Social media exploded with hashtags. Free Vera Middleton trended across every platform. Public opinion, carefully cultivated by the sisters' performance, turned hostile. Dylan was painted as a delusional tyrant clinging to folklore. Vera was portrayed as a helpless victim twice over, once by her own instability, again by the king's obsession. Then Garrick Shadowfong released his own statement. He appeared calm, measured, dripping false concern. The Middleton family entrusted Vera to my care because they knew she needed structure and protection. I was safeguarding her when the king forcibly removed her from my territory. I only wanted to help a vulnerable young woman. The narrative was complete. The sisters were loving family. Garrick was a protector. Dylan was the villain. And Vera was the prize they all wanted back. "They're cornering us," Marcus Ironwood, Dylan's chief advisor, said grimly. "The Royal Council is convening an emergency session. They're demanding you produce Vera for psychiatric evaluation." Dylan's hands curled into fists. "She's still recovering. She can barely stand." "Then they'll claim you're hiding her condition. That you've harmed her." Marcus stepped closer, voice low and urgent. "Your Majesty, if you don't comply, they have grounds to call for your removal. Civil war becomes a real possibility. The Shadowfong pack has allies. The Middletons have sympathy. You're standing on a knife's edge." The trap was elegant. Perfectly constructed. Return Vera to her sister's custody and lose his fated mate. Lose the only hope of restoring the kingdom's protections. Refuse and watch his kingdom tear itself apart. They'd gambled on his honor, his duty to his people. They thought he'd fold. They didn't know what Vera was becoming. Dylan turned from the window, his expression hardening into something sharp and dangerous. "Arrange the council session. We'll attend." "Your Majesty." "Let them convene their tribunal. Let them present their lies." His eyes flashed gold. "They want to see Vera. They'll see her. But not the broken girl they sold. They'll see what they tried to destroy." He left the study and climbed the stairs to Vera's chamber, where she sat by the window, silver-streaked hair catching the afternoon light. She looked up as he entered and he saw it, the gold in her eyes burning brighter than before. Her wolf was rising. And when she finally emerged, the kingdom would witness what happened when you caged a queen for 17 years. Vengeance was coming. Dylan found her on the castle ramparts at midnight, silver hair streaming in the wind like moonlight given form. "You should be resting," he said, though he made no move to take her back inside. "I've been resting for 17 years. Vera turned to face him, and in the darkness her eyes gleamed gold. "Tell me about the Moon Oracle bloodline. Tell me what I'm supposed to be." So he did. They sat on the stone wall, the kingdom spread out below them like a tapestry of lights, and Dylan spoke of ancient history. Of the first oracle queens who could commune with the moon itself, who wove protective barriers around the realm using blood magic and lunar power. Of how that bloodline had faded over generations until scholars believed it extinct. "Until you," he said quietly. "The soul ember bond only manifests between an alpha and an oracle. It's destiny's way of ensuring the right pair finds each other." "And the ritual?" Vera asked, though part of her already knew. The mate bond whispered truths into her consciousness, ancient knowledge bleeding through from Dylan's mind to hers. During the black moon eclipse, a mated oracle pair performs the blood ritual to renew the barriers. Without it, the shadow wolves from the Northlands will breach our defenses. They've been gathering for months, waiting. His jaw tightened. The eclipse is in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Such a small amount of time to save an entire kingdom. What if I can't do it? The question came out small, vulnerable. What if my wolf never fully emerges? What if I'm not strong enough? Dylan turned to her, and the intensity in his gaze stole her breath. "You survived 17 years of systematic poisoning. You endured 5 days of purging that would have killed most wolves. You're standing here, stronger every day, while your sisters try to tear you down with lies." He reached out, his hand cupping her face with devastating gentleness. "Vera, you are the strongest person I've ever known." Something cracked inside her chest, not breaking but opening, letting him in. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Of failing. Of this power inside me. Of what I'm feeling for you." "What are you feeling?" She looked at him. This alpha king who could command armies but held her like she was something precious. Who'd sat beside her through agony and never wavered. Who saw past the broken girl everyone else had dismissed and recognized a queen. That maybe I'm not just chosen by fate. Maybe I'm choosing you too. His eyes flared gold. The mate bond between them surged, a living thing that demanded acknowledgement. There's a ritual, Dylan said, his voice rough. The first bond ritual. It's not the full mating, but it strengthens our connection. Makes the flame mark permanent. Helps your wolf surface. He paused. It requires complete trust. Complete vulnerability from both of us. Vera understood what he was really asking. In a world that had taught her to guard herself, to expect cruelty from those closest to her, he was asking her to be defenseless. To believe he wouldn't hurt her. True power, she realized, wasn't dominance. It was having the courage to be vulnerable with someone who could destroy you, and trusting they'd protect you instead. Show me, she whispered. Dylan took her hands and she felt his power flood through the bond, not overwhelming her but wrapping around her like a shield. He spoke words in the old tongue and she found herself responding in a language she'd never learned but somehow knew. The flame marks on their wrists blazed brighter, burning hotter, until gold light enveloped them both. The bond snapped into place with devastating finality. Vera gasped as she felt everything. His strength, his devotion, his absolute certainty that she was his equal in every way. And he felt her. The rage she'd suppressed for years, the grief of her stolen childhood, and beneath it all, a core of iron will that refused to break. When the light faded, the marks on their wrists had changed. No longer flickering, they burned steady and eternal. Intricate flames etched into their skin like tattoos of living gold. And inside Vera's chest her wolf roared. Not a whisper. Not a stirring. A full-throated howl of fury and triumph that echoed through her entire being. She could feel her now, massive and magnificent, pressing against the boundaries of her human form, demanding to be seen. Soon, Vera promised her wolf. Very soon. Dylan's hand found hers, their marked wrists touching. Ready for the council session tomorrow? Vera smiled, and it was sharp enough to draw blood. Let them try to take me back. The ancient judgment hall had stood for 1,000 years, its vaulted ceiling carved with runes that glowed faintly in the torchlight. This was where truth magic still lingered, where lies withered and died, where deception burned away like morning fog. Dylan had chosen the location deliberately. If his enemies wanted a trial, they would face it in a place where falsehood could not survive. The royal council filled the tiered seats, their faces a mixture of curiosity and judgment. News crews lined the back wall. This session would be broadcast across the kingdom. Vera stood beside Dylan at the center of the hall, her chin lifted, silver-streaked hair pulled back to reveal the golden flame mark blazing on her wrist. She wore simple white, no decoration, no armor. She didn't need it. The doors opened and her sisters entered. Anita, Bella, and Abigail wore funeral black, their faces composed in expressions of sorrowful dignity. They moved like mourners approaching a grave, every gesture calculated for maximum sympathy. Behind them, Garrick Shadowfong took his seat among the accusers, confidence radiating from every line of his body. They thought they'd already won. The council head, an elderly wolf named Margrave Stone, called the session to order. We are gathered to address the petition of the Middleton family regarding their sister, Vera Middleton, currently in the custody of His Majesty. Anita stepped forward, producing a leather folder. Your Honors, we present legal guardianship documents. Vera has been under our care since our father's decline. She requires specialized medical treatment for severe psychological instability. Her voice trembled with manufactured emotion. We only want our sister returned to proper care. The documents passed through the council's hands. Falsified physician signatures. Fabricated diagnoses. Lies stacked upon lies. Dylan's voice cut through the murmurs. The judgment hall recognizes truth. Let us test these claims. Margrave's eyes narrowed. You invoke the ancient protocols? I do. Unease rippled through the Middleton sisters. Garrick shifted in his seat. Bella recovered first, her voice sharp. This is theatrics. We have legal standing. We demand our sister be returned immediately. The council debated. Arguments flew back and forth. Family rights versus royal authority, medical necessity versus alleged kidnapping. The sisters played their parts perfectly, voices rising with righteous indignation. Finally, Anita moved toward Vera, hand outstretched. "Come home, sister. We forgive you for this delusion. We'll take care of you just like we always have." Her fingers closed around Vera's arm. And everything exploded. The touch ignited something primal in Vera. 17 years of suppressed rage, the mate bond screaming protection, her wolf done with cages and chains and pretending to be small. The Blackman's power, already building toward the eclipse, surged through the hall like a tidal wave. Vera's body erupted in silver light. The transformation was instantaneous and devastating. Bones shifted, reformed, expanded. Her human form shattered away like a chrysalis, and what emerged stole the breath from every witness. A wolf of impossible size and beauty stood where Vera had been. Her coat shimmered like liquid starlight, silver white and radiant. Eyes of molten gold blazed with ancient fury. She was massive, nearly matching Dylan's legendary black wolf, a creature of myth made flesh. And across her shoulder, burning with ethereal light, the moon oracle mark blazed for all to see. Anita stumbled backward, face ashen. Bella's practiced composure shattered. Abigail's hand flew to her mouth. The truth magic of the hall awakened. Light burst from the runes carved into the walls, and suddenly the air filled with images. Memories ripped from Vera's wolf, projected for all to witness. A 5-year-old girl drinking bitter tea while Anita watched with cold calculation. Bella measuring drops of poison into vitamin tonics. Abigail forging medical documents in their father's study. Whispered conspiracies in darkened hallways. The contract with Garrick Shadowfong, signatures and gold exchanging hands. Every crime. Every betrayal. Every act of cruelty laid bare. The hall erupted in chaos. But Vera's wolf didn't move. She stood like a monument of silver vengeance, eyes fixed on her sisters, and her howl shook the foundations of the ancient hall. A sound of fury and triumph that announced to the entire kingdom that the Moon Oracle had returned. And she would have justice. The verdict came at dawn. Garrick Shadowfong was executed for treason within the hour, his body burned to ash as custom demanded for those who conspired against the crown. Vera watched from the ramparts as smoke rose into the morning sky. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no remorse. Only a cold certainty that justice had been served. The Middleton sisters stood in chains before the council, their elegant facades finally stripped away. Anita's face was hollow with shock. Bella trembled. Abigail wept, not with remorse but with the bitter tears of those caught in their own trap. "You are hereby stripped of the Middleton name, your titles and all pack rights," Margrave Stone pronounced. "You are banished to the outlands. No pack shall grant you shelter. No territory shall claim you. You will survive as lone wolves or you will not survive at all." It was a death sentence delivered slowly. Lone wolves rarely lasted a year in the wild territories. Vera watched them dragged away and felt the weight of 17 years lift from her shoulders. They had stolen her childhood, but they would not steal another moment. The Shadowfong pack was dissolved, its innocent members redistributed across the kingdom. Those who had been prisoners, like Maya, the hollow-eyed girl from the cells, were given sanctuary and care. And then the Black Moon eclipse arrived. Vera and Dylan climbed the celestial spire as darkness swallowed the sun. At the pinnacle, with the kingdom spread out below and the black moon hanging overhead like a void in the heavens, they performed the ritual their bloodlines had been born to complete. They shifted together, his massive black wolf and her radiant silver one, and their voices joined in the ancient song. Blood magic and lunar power wove together, amplified by the mate bond that connected them soul to soul. The moment the eclipse reached totality, power exploded from them in a wave of pure, devastating energy. The ancient barriers blazed to life across the kingdom's borders, manifesting as shimmering curtains of light that rippled like auroras, silver and gold dancing together in the sky. Every wolf in every territory felt it, the return of the protection that had kept their lands safe for generations. The shadow wolves gathering in the north howled their fury and retreated. They could not pass. Not while the Moon Oracle lived. When Vera and Dylan descended the spire, they did so as equals. As mates. As the king and queen who had saved their people. The coronation was held before all the packs, broadcast to every corner of the realm. Vera knelt in her silver wolf form, And when the crown was placed upon her head, she shifted back to human, silver-streaked hair cascading down her shoulders, gold eyes blazing, the oracle mark burning bright. She was no longer the broken girl sold by her family. She was queen. 3 months later, Vera returned to the Middleton estate. Not as a victim seeking closure, but as a conqueror reclaiming what was hers. She walked through rooms that had once echoed with her sister's cruelty and saw not the past but the future. The estate became the first Ember Sanctuary, a haven for the powerless, the abused, the betrayed. Counselors trained in trauma. Healers who understood the scars that didn't show. Training grounds where the weak could become strong. Vera stood in what had once been her childhood bedroom. The water-stained wallpaper was gone, replaced by warm colors and comfortable furniture. The space where she'd once cowered now served as a counseling center. A knock at the door. She turned. Maya stood in the doorway, the girl from the Shadowfang compound, the one with hollow eyes who'd given up hope. But her eyes weren't hollow anymore. They were wary, yes. Scarred. But alive with the fragile beginning of something that might become strength. Your Majesty, Maya whispered. They said this place is for people like me. Not Your Majesty. Not here. Vera crossed the room and took Maya's hands gently, letting the flame marks on her wrists glow softly. A reminder that power could protect instead of harm. Here I'm just Vera. Someone who understands. Maya's breath hitched. I don't know if I can be fixed. You're not broken, Vera said, echoing the words Dylan had once spoken to her. You're surviving. And survival is the first step to power. He smiled, fierce and certain. You're safe now. And you will be powerful. Through the window, the sun set over the estate that had once been her prison. But prisons, Vera had learned, could be torn down and rebuilt into sanctuaries. Darkness could be transformed into light. And broken girls could become queens. The pack grows stronger. Vera's journey from broken to powerful is complete, but the supernatural world is vast and filled with untold stories of betrayal, revenge, and redemption. Another wolf waits in the shadows. Another kingdom needs saving. Another mate bond calls out in the darkness. The hunt continues in our next video. Click the next video to discover a new alpha's secret. One that could shatter the fragile peace Vera fought so hard to create. Don't let your pack run without you. Watch the next video now. Subscribe so you never miss a chapter. Share this story with fellow wolves who love tales of transformation and triumph. The moon is rising. The hunt begins anew. Will you answer the call?